Here we go. Hi, Melissa. Thank you very much for joining me on my podcast.
Hello, Boyana, and thank you so much for having me. This is a complete honor.
Oh, lovely. I will start with acknowledging you for what you mean to me and what you brought to my life. And
Oh,
then I'll let you introduce yourself as well to the listeners. And so I'll start with how I met you in the elbow room. You are, oh, I'm pretty sure you still are the teaching
facility.
prenatal, yes,
Yeah.
prenatal and post pregnancy yoga teacher class. So that's where I did the course, and you were teaching it there, and that really I this is I keep using expanding, but it's such a word that resonates with me. But that really expanded my knowledge
Hmm.
of what I knew of pregnancy and birth and postpartum. So I really want to acknowledge you for that, because you really changed how my life, what my experience was with pregnancy and birth. So it means the world to me, and I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Well, we learn from all of, from I learned from you as well. We learn from each other, and I think that's what makes the course so special. It's not just text in a manual. It's very much everyone learning from each other, and me passing on what I've learned from all the women that have come through as well, and of course my own studies and experiences as well. But yes, I remember it very clearly when you were there. It was a really, every training is really special, but the way there's some people that really stand out, and you're one of them.
Oh, thank you very much. So yes, please introduce yourself to the audience and let them know what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Melissa Curtis, and I go under the name Tummy Love. So yeah, it kind of named itself because I, of course, am very involved in pregnancy yoga. I did my first training in San Francisco. So I had become a yoga teacher in 2002. And then I had a pregnant woman come to my class about halfway, like about 6 months into my teaching. And it was the most terrifying experience I've ever had, because I had even though I was the eldest of five, and I was a very young babysitter. So I was well used to babies and children, um, and it's how I've made all my money as a kid growing up, babysitting. But I nearly died because I thought, oh my God, what if she has this baby in the class? And she was happy out. She had been doing yoga for a long time. It was her third baby. She was as chilled as anything. And she made me feel really comfortable. But I remember going home that night going, I never want that feeling in a class again, because I felt like it was completely out of my scope. And I just felt I felt really vulnerable, actually, because I was like, I don't know how to help this woman. I didn't feel safe, and so but she was fine, she was loved her yoga practice, and so she was well up on it. So I went and I researched pregnancy yoga trainings, and that I found was one of those. I didn't look up, was it Yoga Alliance accredited? I just found this one that spoke to me. It was a week resident, like a residential week, where we went and lived there for a little over a week. I think it was about 9 days. And we were in the Santa Cruz Mountains, just outside San Francisco. And we were going to be on a university campus. And I just quite liked the idea of going and immersing myself in this. So I had no idea. I came from a very hot yoga kind of background, where I was like, I was in my 20s. I wanted to work, and I wanted to sweat. And anyway, I discovered this, and there was the most beautiful, beautiful woman teaching it called Robin Sale. I'd never heard anything about her. It just spoke to me, and it was just amazing. Like there were midwives, doulas, just people like myself, mothers who just given birth, pregnant women who were all doing it. I mean, I'd never heard of a doula before. I'd never even knew that there was such a thing as a birth center before. I was coming from Ireland.
I was going
This
to
was
ask you.
kind of like, I left Ireland in the 90s, and this was the early 2000s. I discovered yoga in the late 90s. And so I was, very much coming out of a very kind of old school Ireland. I mean, we're still have a long way to go with the maternity services here. It is quite backwards, but we so I went and did this, and I was blown away, because I remember leaving a bit like, but there wasn't that much yoga. I was kind of like, oh my God. But at least I was like, at least I have the yoga background. But because most of it was about empowering women. That's what it was. So this woman completely inspired me. It was called Whole Birth Resources, the training, and it was just so special. And I think I learned how to spell the word doula down there, and it was just really, really honoring the experience the woman's going through. And the yoga was part of it, but a very small part. So I remember thinking, oh God, I hope I can teach, because I didn't really do a lot of we did some yoga poses, and we learned so much about optimal fetal positioning, which was years ahead of what was going on in Ireland. And anyway, I did that training and started teaching just small little privates, in San Francisco, because I knew I was moving back to Ireland, and that was my goal. It was like, we need this in Ireland more than anything, because before I did that training, I would have absolutely said, put me to sleep and wake me up when the baby's there, very much so. And because I just wasn't educated. It was all fear-based, everything that I had learned was all fear-based, run for the hills. And there were a lot, the church obviously is still very dominating, being a single mom, anything to do with pregnancy was kind of dirty. That's what I was coming from in Ireland. We still, not to my knowledge, we still had these Magdalene laundries. And I was very innocent Irish over there in America, but it really opened my eyes. You said the word expanding. So like for me, that training expanded, that there was way more to what we'd seen in the odd movie or what we'd heard. Okay. Because, we were made to believe that, anything feminine was a bit dirty in Ireland. Okay. You hid your sanitary products in a brown paper bag. You never spoke about anything. It was very, very, don't say anything. And pregnancy was more kind of like, the look of fear. If you said you were pregnant, you were petrified to get pregnant. I think I was. It was just something that was never expressed in a very positive way. So then I came back to Ireland, and I was really lucky. A friend told me that the Elbow Room it was just the right place, the right time. A friend of mine told me she saw an advert for a studio in Dublin that were looking for somebody, not for pregnancy yoga, but they were looking for more administration and a teacher as well. So I met Lisa Wilkinson, who owns the Elbow Room, and I remember we were sitting on those bean bags that they have in the Elbow Room, and she had just had her baby, just opened the studio, and we just clicked. Like we were on the same page. And so I started working there, and it just went from there. Like the very first, I will say, like that was very early 2004. And we just started pregnancy yoga. And I think Lisa had been teaching like in a different place before, but we were just getting the studio up and running. And one person came to that pregnancy yoga class, and then another, and then another. And I think Lisa knew the person who came the first time. I know who she is now. Her kids are teenagers. She worked there for a while as well at some stage. And then it just grew. I know, I remember the first core group that started there, all their children now are 16, and I just remember a lot of them were due in December, and it was lovely. This was the first group that, the way I'm very into in the trainings of like building a tribe, creating a community, connecting people, support, all of that, apart from going in and getting your stretches and your toning and preparation for birth. And this group, like for many years, this bunch of moms met up with their babies. And even I was talking to one of them the other day, and she's like, oh yeah, I must call such and such, they'll all be like, those kids will be 17 next December. Like that's, yeah. And that was, that was kind of after a year of teaching. It took me a while to build it up. And then the class went from strength to strength. And then we had wait lists, packed. It was the Celtic Tiger place. It was booming, and then we decided, I had my first in 2005, the very end. And so I just was very underwhelmed with what was out there when I went off to take classes. I mean, they were nice, but I just kind of felt, after having my baby, I realized they weren't great preparation classes for birth. It was a nice getaway for me from working and having a bit of headspace and being on my mat. And of course, any yoga class is just lovely. But it wasn't really, I felt, for the maternity system that we had in Ireland. And also I had a home birth, which again, I didn't tell many people I was having one
Yeah.
until I had it, because it was very, very frowned upon. And the fear was put in me, you know, if any, like, people were giving out to me, people who I didn't even know heard I was having a home birth and felt they had to say something to me, that I was putting my baby at jeopardy and whatever. So there was a lot of fear again. And I felt, although, you know, I had the best support, an amazing midwife, an amazing doula, Lisa, who owns the studio, is my doula, and I had a great supportive husband. I mean, he's just brilliant. I felt that was it, you know, like there was like an underground home birth group. We used to meet in people's houses at nighttime. We'd be eating apple pie, had talking about home birth. You didn't even tell the hospital. You did not, like, I was through with a hospital in Dublin. You did not tell them you were having a home birth. You just pretended you were going through the public system. It was crazy, you know, and I felt really bad being at the appointments, kind of lying to them. But that's all there was to do, you know, that otherwise you'd have an obstetrician coming down, just talking over you, you know, do you know what you're doing? Because there just wasn't enough information out there. And so we decided to create our own pregnancy yoga training. And so the first one was in 2006. Actually, the very early 2007, sorry. So my daughter was born at the end of 2005. I took a year off, and then we started the training. So that it went from strength to strength, you know, it was just like we made it up. The first one, I have to say, as we went along, we knew what we wanted to get. Like, I wanted to teach a training that prepared women for birth, mentally and physically, you know, and to enjoy their pregnancy, and if anything came up, and for motherhood too. I think it definitely is a well-rounded training for all of that. And then that went so well that we started the mum and baby yoga training after that. So that was just a little bit after the pregnancy training, and here I am. You know, one of the longest running teachers at the Elbow Room. You know, it's a great center for supporting families. You know, Lisa definitely has worked really hard at that, and we did our best. So I'm just teaching the trainings there. When I had my third baby, it's just a bit far where I live. So going in the weekends is grand for the trainings, but I don't teach the regular classes there anymore. I kind of pass those on. Yeah.
You have also the kids teacher training?
Yeah, so I teach the pregnancy training, the mum and baby yoga training. I took over the kids yoga training about 7 years ago. I also created with another teacher the teen yoga teacher training, which it ran 2 years ago, but we took it over this year and kind of rewrote it. And so that's off the ground and really successful. I think now, my goodness, do we need yoga in schools more than anything? I mean, Michael G. Higgins said that in an article last week as well. And then I run there's a module on the 300-hour called Wise Woman. So I run that as well. And I kind of, you know, a little bit here and there help out at 200-hour trainings, but my passion is women's health. Like, that would be top of the list, you know, women's health. And then of course, you know, supporting them down through the years, from I've done yoga to support fertility, as far as, you know, I teach in nursing homes. So it's, you know, it's right across the board, as you say, expanded. I've expanded everything so that I kind of can hold a woman through everything. You know, I'm kind of more so pregnancy, postnatal periods still. And then just in general, I run women's health through yoga retreats, and they might be a weekend somewhere. I've taught down at the Cliffs of Moher, which is just a phenomenal place. And then I also teach, you know, just daily like mini urban retreats, you know. Yeah, exactly.
And does it also like that woman experience in life as well with premenopause and menopause? Is there a particular field in that as well?
Oh yes, so I did a fantastic training with the Instinct Yoga. Neve is her name, and so that would be very much from the, you know, perimenopausal stage. And I think that's something that a lot of women don't. Everyone says menopause, but menopause is actually when we've had a year without any menstrual cycle. You know, so it's people get mixed up, and I don't think people realize that there's a whole build up to menopause, and actually it's the time up to about 10 years before the complete cessation of having our period, is really where it all where shit can hit the fan, you know, or not. You know,
Yeah.
I'm finding I'm kind of, you know, have been, you know, this trickling along, and I think where yoga really comes in is you're connecting to your body, you know, once you're on that yoga mat, and off as well, you're kind of more aware of the signs, you know, and you become a little bit better at listening to the whispers or listening to the signs in your body. And I'm not saying anyone's an expert just because they're a yoga teacher, but you know, it's really important to kind of start filling your toolbox from your late 30s. You know, from age about 39, unless you've had a medical reason and your body has gone into early perimenopause, menopause as well. So, you know, but if that hasn't happened, and if it does, having a toolbox is really important, but filling your toolbox with things like, okay, how do I look after myself? And I think a lot of us don't realize that, you know, like a lot of us have to work really hard, and we're doing everything, you know, we're working, we are, you know, looking after the kids, you know, running a household. I mean, my husband's amazing. It's 50-50 between the two of us. So, you know, that's just the way we've started, and always the way, you know, I've been myself, but not everybody is. So there's a lot going on. And I think women, there's an incredible amount of pressure to succeed and be this and be that. And I'll put my hand up. I definitely, you know, would be partial to, you know, worrying, am I doing enough? And I think that's a problem. And you see, we have these peaks and troughs of estrogen. So we get this surge of energy, and then we're like, you know, we drop. So you'll see a lot of women kind of in their late 30s, early 40s doing marathons, doing this, you know, which is fine to do, by the way. But if you don't know how to mind yourself, how to rest as well as, you know, go, then you're going to collapse, you know. And I definitely noticed that myself. I got really good at looking after myself at about age 42. I'm 47 next month, and you know, about 5 years ago, I just got better. I made sure, now obviously the last year has been different. I make sure I take a retreat by myself somewhere in Ireland. I sea swim regularly. That is a non-negotiable. Like, my family know that's what I do. And then what else do I do? I drink cacao. I think that really keeps my mood, my hormones in a nice balanced state. But look, I was cranky with the kids yesterday. You
What?
know, like, yeah. You know, I'm not. You know, it just, nobody's perfect, you know. And sleep. So for me, sleep is probably 5 years ago what I really took on board. And I think if anyone was to come away from this today, I would really look at your sleep, you know, and how are you going to bed? You know, are you on your phone? Are you, you know, on technology? Are you giving yourself a bit of a wind down? Are you working late and then trying to get to bed? And for like, going to bed earlier for me was a major role player in getting through, starting that perimenopausal stage of my life without too many symptoms. You know, I think sleep, like, there's lots of books coming out about sleep now. There's tons of research showing that sleep is just such a, you know, a counter, what would you say? You know, I won't say it's an activity, but something you can do to counterbalance stress in your life, energy levels. And especially as we get older, you know, sleep needs to be a key player. You do end up waking a little earlier, so getting to bed a little earlier can be, you know, really important.
Yeah.
I like getting up early now. So I'm not going to bed at 8 o'clock. I've got 3 kids, and, you know, they're starting to go to bed later than me now. But I'm actually, even now, like over the weekend, I was like, I'm going to bed. If you want me to say goodnight to you and read your story, you go now. If not, I'm going, you know? So I kind of am really prioritizing that. And that's something I'm really trying to bring my kids up with as well, is how important sleep is, you know? It's it's just really important.
I think when you see the benefits for yourself of how you feel And it's not even
Yeah,
after one day, obviously, of a really good night's sleep. This is a battery that you build up of a storage. And when you,
storage. Exactly. That's it. It's your, I call it the toolkit.
yeah,
You know, like we talk about that in pregnancy, motherhood. You know, the toolkit is yoga is going to help me stay well, connected. You know, it's going to look after our joints and muscles and you know, our cells. Great circulation is important, but also it teaches you to rest as well, you know. Um, and you'll find some people will come to the likes of yin or restorative yoga when the time is right, you know, when they've actually, a lot, most people are at burnout and then they discover these, you know, we, most people get to burnout till they discover something, you know, which is sad, but it is the way it is. So what I try and promote in my classes is the balance between movement and rest, lots of activity, lots of rest, you know, trying to listen to your body. You know, is your body telling you just to get into your pajamas at 7 o'clock, or is your body saying, no, go for a walk that evening? You know, that's, you need that. Like, no movement is not great either, you know, like it's really important to move your body in a moderate way. But your toolbox is actually becoming more connected to your instincts, I think, more than anything.
yeah.
And that's something that I really like to promote in all my classes, is listening to your instincts. Because I think there's, you know, there's more books written on the menopause than there are any other books.
Wow.
Yes, I know. So that just shows you, like, what are we telling people? Why do we have to keep writing all these books? You know, and there's a lot of advertising telling us that it's going to be the worst experience of our life and we need to
Yeah.
do this and do that. But I think, you know, I do see people who are too busy to look after themselves. So then they're just very quick to head to the GP and you know, which is no problem at all. But I do think it's important to you know, just find a balance, find the balance, you know, it's really important. So I feel really lucky that I have a lot behind me already, because I do feel like I'm 47, you know, like there's definitely a lot of changes happening. And, you know, I did go through a year where I was waking up a lot, sweating, and, but I then went, okay, what might be encouraging this? What could I do? And I really took that on board, and it made a big difference, you know. But it's and it doesn't mean that yoga is going to magically disappear the symptoms, you know, it's not going to, but it can help. There's, you know, help is there. And sometimes we have to combine modern medicine with the alternative medicine as well, you know, and that's really important. It's not, oh, you must only go the alternative route, you know. I think it's important to find a balance as well. Absolutely. And I we've done that in our family as well, and it's worked really well. But you know, I think when a lot of women who take pregnancy yoga, um, they end up wanting to continue on with their yoga because they see the benefits. Not every woman, by the way, but a lot of them do. And then they, you know, they kind of just keep going. And then, you know, you can see the women that come to the classes quite regularly. They're there because they know they actually have to be, you know, like it's part of their growing older, you know, that's the way it is. Like I notice myself, if I slack a little bit, my digestive system might be great. You know, going to the toilet is really is really important as a woman for a pelvic floor. But I find if I'm more sluggish in my activities, that makes a difference. Getting outside for me is major, you know, getting outside, being in nature, you know. And even before we had a dog that got us out every day, I was still very much, you know, into just experience. And like sea swimming has been an incredible game changer for me. Just getting into that cold has, I think, really helped, you know, balance out body temperatures, and just mental health too. Like it's, I always think if we could just put everyone in a bus that's in a, you know, a hospital or a center, you know, for that's supporting them through mental health, just every day get them into the sea. It's not going to get rid of psychosis or schizophrenia, but I think feeling your body, feeling the cold going into your skin and feeling yourself again, because I think you become so numb, and a lot of medication numbs us as well. And I just oh, every time I'm in the water, I'm like, God, if only we could do this.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way society is and how we're experiencing life is messages from externally telling
Yeah.
us what we should feel or do, or and tools like yoga or meditation or whichever, like that, a run or a walk or whatever experience in nature is
Yeah.
more so focused on tuning into your instinct and
Mhm.
listening inside. And like that, maybe the instinct is, I need to ask for help, I don't know the answer, but
Exactly.
you hear that more.
Yes.
And also it feels much more comfortable rather than overwriting it, that instinct with something somebody else is saying, and you go,
Yeah.
okay, I'll do that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel right. And the fact that you're overriding your instinct gives a real
Yeah.
message to you, kind of,
Yeah.
oh, your instinct is not right or something. So
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
doubt that when you listen to your instinct, it
Mm.
feels much more.
Another one of those instincts that came to me was learning to say no,
Yeah.
or because I would be a pleaser. And I do love to please people. I love to look after people. I love to, like, I spent a long time buying birthday presents because I kind of almost decide what to get them because I'm so excited buying them a present, you know. So I've always been that type of person. So it made it hard for me to say no. And I'm still, every day I'm practicing this, you know, but I think learning to say no as we get older is like, I love seeing people younger being good at saying no, because I'm like, oh, that's one thing off your list of things to have to figure out as you get older. Because the more we say yes, the more tired you get, the more burnt out you get. You know, you have to be very good at filtering out what the no's should be and what the yeses should be. And like, I've only, that's something in the last 5 years. So it'd be learning to say no more, really looking after myself. Not like, the family are really important, but I've started to put myself first. I really have. You know, it's like, sorry, I'm going to a class, or I'm going on a retreat this weekend. See yous, bye. You know, we even, we've had one car for years, you know, and we've done all three kids with one car, and it has been a challenge, I'll tell you, you know, because we do live near the Dart, which is great, but the buses are terrible, and you know, getting to the airport's a nightmare. You know, things like this. Like, not that I've been to the airport more than once a year, you know, but anything, but it meant that we had to give up a lot of our own time because both of us needed to be in the car to get someone to work, or to get someone to a class, or get someone to the dentist, or whatever. And I've just invested in a new car for myself, a very small car, because it means, you know what, now, instead of my husband driving me into work so he can have the car for the day when I'm working all weekend, I can go to the beach, have a swim, get dressed, and go to work for the day. You know, like those tiny little things. It's like, no, I'm actually getting a car so I can actually have a bit of a life, which sounds very first world and sounds quite selfish to some, but that is going to change me looking after myself a lot more. And you know, being able to say, oh, we don't need two cars. I don't have to, you know, sacrifice a whole day because we're trying to share the car. Now we can do our own thing, which I think is so important. It's freedom. Freedom's really important for people to have. And I'm just going for a swim. I'm not going shopping. You know what I mean?
Oh, and
I'm just going to a yoga class. Like, there's many times I can't go take a class in a studio because, say, my son is GAA, so we only have the one car, and then I have to go to work or whatever. So now I'm like, oh my God. And my husband's like, I can go play, I can go do this, you know? So it's great. Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch back on the teacher training and mention that, say, for example, when I started it, I had no idea why I felt the calling, or, you know, I felt the connection with you and Lisa, but it was never in my mind to teach after. And I find that for myself with other courses as well, that I do more for me and to learn more and to experience that, like you
Yeah.
said, your immersion in the knowledge and in that group and in that teacher. And afterwards, what happens afterwards, whether you teach or not. Is that your experience of the students? So for people listening, kind of going, well, I don't want to be a teacher, yoga teacher, why would I do a training? So I just
Yeah.
want to switch back on that from that
Yeah.
perspective.
Oh no, we have so many people who don't end up teaching regularly. Like we take people who are not already yoga teachers, which a lot of courses do. But we are Yoga Alliance UK professional accredited because we have 11 days of training. A lot of trainings might be, say, 6 or less. It might be 3 weekends or 2 weekends. Some are a weekend, by the way, some are 3 days. And yeah, sure, if you have your 200-hour, but that's just more back to the asana again. So we really, you're just a pregnancy yoga teacher after it, nothing else. But honestly, I have seen people come in without the yoga teacher background and do like 100 times better than someone who might already be a teacher, because they're coming because they have a passion for it, they have a calling. Say they did pregnancy yoga during their pregnancy and it totally blew them away how much it helped them, regardless how they birthed their baby. I've women who've come, who had quite a tricky experience and had everything and ended up with a cesarean birth, and they've come to the training because they're like, I still feel everything I learned in that class got me through. Or you have people who are just like, completely blown away about how it helped them and avoid any of the interventions that they were, hoping to avoid, and a little bit of both as well. We also have a very lovely amount of midwives from all over Ireland now, and the UK, by the way. We had quite a lot of midwives from Belfast come down. And so we we want to welcome, because many midwives can't teach a regular class because they've got shift work. They can't, they can't even get to a class themselves on a regular basis. They have to like sporadically take bits here and there. And so, but many of the midwives are trying to set up maybe like I had a midwife who was in charge of the teenage unit in a hospital. So she wanted to bring pregnancy yoga in. There's all different ways. And I think it's unfair to leave them out of it, that a midwife has to go through her 200-hour training before she can book, and that turns a lot of people off. And I cannot tell you the amount of midwives who've come to that training and said, it's just reignited why I became a midwife, because you're all excited and then the system does drag you down a lot, and shift work is hard. Working in an Irish hospital is hard. They're always understaffed, and so they will find they've got that kind of their mojo back and empowered. The amount of messages I get are pretty incredible. And then we have, a yoga teacher who wants to, expand their knowledge and what they can offer people. So like, it's not just so you can set up a Monday evening class every week. And we have a lot of people who already have a job who are just kind of doing it on a weekly basis. Then we have some people who this is going to be their career, this is it. So we have quite a mix. I actually, in the last 2 trainings that I just ran, we had quite a high number of mental health nurses from hospitals. Yes, from around Ireland. So that was really lovely to see. And I think because of the mindfulness and like you were talking about, listening to yourself and before this, that's what we were talking about. It really starts with your breath. Everything starts with the breath. We can just connect to your breath. And I think, getting back to the basics is, where a lot of the healing starts. But, these mental health nurses are realizing how the practice of connecting to breath, positive thoughts, affirmations, just gentle movement in the body to just reconnect and then, empowering women who might have had quite a traumatic experience on their first or second, and then coming back and being pregnant again, but very fearful, and how we turn our fears into how we work through our fears and how we like change our mindset, to a more positive one. And I think that's something we really need to work on, definitely. So yeah, like it's really for everybody, and I support everybody. I mean, of course you need to take part in the training to get that cert at the end, and of course you need to follow through. We have a teaching exam at the end. Like all of that is important, but we definitely everyone's ready to teach once they finish the training if they want to be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think my understanding of yoga was very superficial. So when I was exposed to the amount of knowledge that we had about the physical body, the mental health, and exercise, then as each pose that we had to learn and be examined on. It really blew my mind how knowledgeable yoga teachers are. And I also wanted to touch back on that, how you include midwives and the system, that what you taught us in class or in general your philosophy is not excluding the society, but much more working together and
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. I think, sometimes you will come across someone who's like, oh no, they take, non-yoga teachers. And I'm like, but you're missing out on doulas, midwives. You're missing out on the people who want to support these women in one of the most empowering, vulnerable, overwhelming, most challenging times of their life. Just because you're a yoga teacher doesn't mean you have that knowledge and that awareness. So it's really important, like, that we support the women or men. I've had one man come through the training who really want to carry these women more than just how to teach warrior two. So it's like, I challenge anyone, that would doubt a training that is very comprehensive now. 11 days is 11 days plus an exam day. So it's 12 days in total, So I challenge anyone who would want to, diss it, because it's anyone who takes the training. I don't think there's anyone who's ever taken that training who would say, oh, I really don't. I've had yoga teachers teaching for years come that training, besides someone who's never trained to be a yoga teacher before. At the end of it, there's no difference, because they're well trained. No one gets their cert unless they're ready. Of course, sometimes there are people, I've had someone take the exam twice, like after their initial exam, or you would, and, but that's okay. And I find, honestly, I see people out there teaching now who are doing very well, or they may not be teaching regular classes. They might be doing something else in the kind of the maternity area. And I know that they had to repeat their exam, some of them twice, but they are doing phenomenal. I think sometimes when you have to repeat, you never forget what you did. I don't know. I think it makes you a better teacher sometimes, So I always say, just because you have to do this again doesn't mean there's anything, this doesn't define you as a teacher. If anything, if you want to do this exam again, you are determined to become a good pregnancy yoga teacher or supporter of whatever line of work you're doing.
Yeah. If you if we could talk about a bit about tapping, because that's my passion now, and I really I know you touched on it in the training when we were talking about mom and baby, and you mentioned it to us on tapping on the chest for the immune system for the baby, and I've heard of tapping before that, and you kind of informed me again, and then in the last couple of years I came to it for my own healing and for what I felt I wasn't unwell, and it's really helped me. So I went on to be a certified practitioner.
Oh,
But
wow.
I would love to, if you say where you came across tapping and what's your experience?
To be honest with you, I don't know the exact time that I came across it, but I think it was just myself, my own practice, like having taken a class with a teacher who was into tapping, and how I felt after. And it's a bit of fun. Like I'm not an expert, like I've done no training like yourself, but really just, I mean, it's all about just bringing energy and awareness to this space and circulation. If anyone was to ask me, what's the benefits of yoga? I would say, well, I think the main benefit is actually good circulation. And good circulation is health. So I get moms to like tap around their face, and afterwards they're like, for more so, you feel a lot more awake after it. I think you feel a lot more relaxed, and a lot of women were like, God, that felt amazing. So I was like, oh, I must bring this in a little bit more, So we do a little facial massage, we tap in certain areas around the face, and we do our heart. And I think what I feel after this, again, you're talking about the word expansion and expanding. When after tapping here, you just feel a little bit more open and receptive, and just, I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I can't pinpoint exactly, oh, this is it, but I think it's more paying attention to yourself more than anything. I think when you pay attention to yourself, you go, God, that felt really nice. You can see people's faces after, they're like, oh, they look like they're full of endorphins and oxytocin, and it really, and then the babies have a bit of fun, you know. So we do a little bit to babies, just a little bit. And I'm like, you know, you can do this during the winter, and you can, you know, I'm not promising that it's going to get rid of that cold or whatever, you know, you're going to avoid antibiotics, but it's just, you know, the thymus is very active in childhood, and it's a major gland and it's here. So we're just going to do a little bit of tapping to encourage, you know, circulation and energy here. And look, if anything comes out of it, great. If not, it's just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be an expert. I wouldn't be able to say, oh, yes, you must do it for this. I just say this is a little bit of paying attention, but also it brings awareness, it brings vitality, it brings circulation.
No, it was really, I was curious to hear your opinion, because like that it can sound very clinical or too woo-woo or far for people. So
Yeah.
from your experience and from like that, seeing other people, how they react to it.
That's it. Yeah. It's the reaction. So it's the feeling that I would get. Like I know myself having a young baby, like none of my children slept. You know, I genuinely had non-sleepers, and we had a couple of things happen, and you know, various reasons why my eldest didn't sleep, and then my second had colic and reflux, and my third was a breeze, but she still never slept. She still is in our bed. She's 9 now, you know, like every night she's like, please, can I sleep in your bed? Now I'm a total, I give in, of course. I like having her there. And my husband, but between the two of them, I get no sleep. Like between him snoring, her kicking the blankets off, I'm wrecked the next day. And I'm like, my kids are older. I shouldn't be losing sleep over this, you know. But anyway, um, you know, it's more just for my, when I was tired, say if I had to get in the car and I was just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. What am I going to cook for dinner? Like the thought of having to make a decision, you know, I was in a real haze of pure exhaustion with my babies, you know, and it wasn't easy. So I would just kind of, you know, tap, especially here. I would have done a lot of acupuncture, and I would have practiced acupressure for birth. So I kind of know we have these points in our body that can, you know, have different effects. And, you know, in yoga, we have our mudras and that kind of thing. So, you know, there's definitely something to be said about it. And I used to, you know, my acupuncturist used to put his needle here, and I remember walking down Manor Street, because I'd go from the Elbow Room on my lunch break over to Mark Seston and Manor Street, and I remember like laughing my head off, like from his office, from his, you know, place, his practice, back to work. And I'd be like giggling to myself, and I'd be like, I don't know why I'm laughing, but I feel like I just be in such a good mood. And I was going through a really tough time. So I was going for that reason. And I remember just giggling my head off. And like, it wasn't a great area back then. It was quite, there was a lot of people sitting around and a lot of drinking, and it was quite like that whole area has changed completely. Now it's like the place to live. But you know, like I was mugged a few times around there, and you know, it wasn't a place to be going around laughing your head off, like unless I had taken some drugs or something, you know, which you'd see a lot. But so I remember thinking, God, there's really something to these energy points in our body, isn't there? You know, and I know it's a bit different with acupuncture because it's a lot deeper, but you know, I just tap here and all around, and suddenly I'd be like, I feel a lot more awake after my 3 hours sleep. I'd be like, I feel just, I don't know, it would like plump you up a little bit. It would just kind of spruce you up a bit. And I was like, let me teach the moms this in my class. I have done no training, so I never say this is for this or this will do this. I just say, let's just look after ourselves. Let's just give ourselves a little bit of love. Imagine the little kisses that you're giving yourself with your fingers, you know, and it's usually the most favorite class.
It's so the tips of our fingers are so sensitive, and so much you get from both touching from your fingers and from the face, also very sensitive. So it's
Yeah,
wonderful. Really like
yeah,
this here.
yeah. And
And
I'm doing it a lot actually at the moment. Like I'm doing a lot of facial massage and just kind of self-care love classes, because they're all online, and we have been lacking in that touch. And a lot of moms are at home with their baby all day on their own. Say if their family lives in Cork, they weren't able to visit them for many, many months. Very tough, very tough. So I find the classes where we actually really give ourselves a little bit of attention are probably the ones I get the most response from at the moment, because I think we're lacking that. So it's quite nice to give ourselves that kind of that love and that care, but also the touch, the
yeah,
stimulation. Yeah.
yeah, we need more of it, definitely. I
Yeah.
conscious of the time, and I don't want to take up too much for you. So if
All
we
good for now. All's good. Yeah.
good stuff, if we could wrap up with, is there anything you think somebody that is listening today can take away with them and maybe try today, or when they find a minute for themselves, to maybe bring in self-care? Or what do you think? We're all, like you said,
Well,
touching that.
yeah, I guess it depends for someone who's listening what's going on. I think support is key, and I'm talking about yoga as a support. It's not the only thing. I think asking for help,
Yeah.
and it mightn't be like, a lot of people, help is a bit of a word where we go, help, help. You mightn't feel like you're really drowning or suffocating or whatever. You mightn't feel that at that point. You might get to that because you haven't put your hand up and said, look, I just need some support. Support comes in so many different ways. So for me, it would be, number one would be, what is it like, asking yourself, okay, am I overwhelmed? Can I not make a decision? Do you need to just talk? Sometimes you just need to find somebody that you can talk to. So that's really important. And it might be somebody who is a friend, a family member, or, a healthcare professional. Okay. There are so many supports out there. People don't realize that. And I think in Ireland, we're not very good at asking for support. And I see that a lot. Okay. So that's something I promote a lot. I think every woman should give themselves the gift of seeing a women's health physio. I think that's really important. Even though you might have given birth, we still are quite disconnected to our bodies, in a sense of, how's our pelvic floor doing? It could be something as simple as learning how to go to the toilet properly, because later on in life, that's going to help us. Okay. It doesn't matter, like from your like mid 30s on, you should have seen a women's health physio by now. Okay. And that, like, some women, if you're in your 60s, just go, and talk to them. If you're a little bit nervous about what to expect, it has to be a women's pelvic health physio. Not just any old physio, like, it has to be someone who's specifically, because they're trained in how to, like, if someone's vulnerable, if they're nervous, if they don't know what to expect, you can talk to them on the phone so they know where you're coming from. Okay. That's really important. So looking after yourself is key, but I think getting that pelvic health check is really important. And then finding what gives you joy. What gives you joy? And this is something I do a lot of my classes, to say, like, have a think this week. What gave you joy? Or what could you do to give yourself joy? And we'll talk about it next week. And that might be a woman saying, oh, I've got into the sea. Or one woman said, while my partner was home for the weekend, I got an hour's nap each day and I felt like a different person. It might be, yeah, exactly. It might be, I went for a walk by myself. I just went, put my earphones on. I listened to a podcast. I've become there's one thing this year, I've become a big podcast listener. When I'm out walking, it's great. I love hearing nature and the birds and all, but sometimes my mind starts ticking, and then I'm like on my walk thinking of things that are bothering me, which can be good sometimes, but if they're taking away from a joyful experience, I'll put a nice podcast on and I just go to another place and I'm walking around listening, and it's just so nice. And I learn something from podcasts. I think they're brilliant. Good ones that you connect to are really important. And like, I was listening to one yesterday and it wasn't me. So I switched on one that I knew was, it doesn't matter. So I think, there's not just one thing. It's support is key. Now, support might be signing up for a 6-week yoga course. And yoga is, you're supporting yourself through that. So if it's something that is taking over your life, and if mentally you're finding you're not in a great mood all the time, you're cranky with people, you are feeling overwhelmed, every little decision is very hard to make, call up a friend who might have the same age child as you do and go, hey, did you ever feel this? Or, speak to your GP, or if you're close to a family member, just say it to them, or, if there's anyone you can say it to. And then secondly, finding joy and really looking after yourself, and start off easy and small. So it might be walking, it might be, walking to your favorite coffee shop and back. It might be going for a sea swim. It might be a yoga class. It might be calling a friend because you're feeling lonely. So I think there's everyone is different.
Yeah.
So we have, and when I say yoga, there might be someone listening to this who just yoga, they feel they're more connected to Pilates, or they're more connected to like a gym style workout, and all of this will encourage endorphins. Every single study, you won't find a study that doesn't say this, will say moderate exercise increases the happy hormones, which endorphins are one of them, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel good hormones. And then your body is like, oh, that felt really good. I'm going to do that again this week or tomorrow. And then you keep it keeps your mood raised. And you're like, I'm a better mother when I've had my C-swim. 100%. I'm a better mother when I've had a yoga practice. Like or when I've connected to my breath. I'm trying now in the mornings, I always wake up a bit before everybody. Lying in bed, I don't worry about having the perfect setting around me with the proper cushion to sit on and the candles lighting and the looking out at the ocean. That's not happening where I live. So I'm lying in bed, practicing a breathing technique that I really like. And then my mind wanders and I'm thinking of the day, and then like, oh, I've just totally lost what I was intended to do. So I'm going to come back to my breath, and 5 minutes max. And sometimes I go, oh my God, that was 10 minutes. I didn't even notice the time going. Or sometimes it's 2 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to finish now. So sometimes you just have to kind of maybe even set your alarm for 5 minutes. So at least you get minimum 5 minutes. Like if you can't find 5 minutes for yourself, there's an issue there, And I remember a teacher saying that to me, actually. I was actually Susan Church, who also worked at the Elbow Room. I remember her in a training once saying, if you can't find, because people were like, how long should I practice for? What should I do? How long? Never put a number on it, really. Because then it becomes a challenge, but a realistic number is really important. An hour might be way too much to start off with. So I remember her saying, and it really resonated with me because I went, oh my God, that's me. And she goes, if you can't find 10 minutes in your day for yourself, that's not good. That's an issue. And I remember being in the class going, oh my God, I don't really have 10 minutes to myself. How could I do that? I was like, I don't know how I'd ever even do that. And it was a little seed that was sown. And from the training that I teach, we sow a lot of seeds. And even though I might be very good at sowing seeds, sometimes I'm not great at taking it on myself. And I remember thinking 10 minutes. Yeah. And every day I'm like, right, 10 minutes. If I can't, she's right. She's absolutely right. And then the 10 minutes sometimes turns into 15 an hour. Sometimes it's only 10 minutes. But you've got to think, okay, have I had my 10 minutes today? And see where that takes you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation and the nuggets of gold and advice. That I suppose normalizing. I think with all these conversations that I have it's about real people, and I acknowledge again your honesty, your sharing all your life experience and your experience, but it just helps normalize it for all of us.
Yeah, I think as well, something I wanted to say was, like I have, my page, Tummy Love at Melissa, and I try and keep it as real as possible because like, I think social media is fantastic in many ways, and it has like we've stayed in touch through social media. There's so many benefits to it. But like I was saying, if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's another thing to look at. Is it because you're looking at everyone else thinking they have a better life than me? I don't know what I would have done if I had babies in social media. I mean, I was constantly comparing myself. So, I think there's a lot to be said. There's some incredible people out there doing the right stuff. And then there's a lot of fake stuff going on and a lot of perfection going on. Life is not perfect. Life is full of imperfections, and you have to understand that, and we learn from our challenges, but, nobody is living that life unless they're loaded and have like the 3 nannies and the chef and the cleaning person, so you just have to remind yourself that it's not real. Most of it isn't. Find the ones that like go tonight and unfollow anyone that you look at and gives you that pang of, oh God, I'm not doing enough. If anyone makes you think you're not doing enough, get rid of it.
Mm.
And that's something I've, you know, because I'm actually fairly new to social media because I'm not great with technology, and it's not really my passion,
Yeah, yeah.
but I do try my best when I am on social media that I'm being as really realistic as possible. Trying, you know.
Fantastic. Speaking of, let's say to our listeners where they can find you and how
Yeah,
they.
so my website is tummylove.ie, and there you can, you know, at the moment I'm working online, but I work in two studios. I work in Yoga Next Door, which is part of Hot Yoga Dublin, and then I also teach at the Yoga Lounge. So they're both on the north side, and I teach at the Elbow Room at the trainings. And then you can find me on Instagram at Tummy Love with Melissa, and Facebook Tummy Love as well. So Tummy Love with Melissa. If you remember that, you'll find me.
Brilliant. I'll include those in the.
Yeah, I teach baby massage as well. So like everything is there. You know, the website is pretty good. So
Fantastic.
that's another thing COVID got me doing, was a better website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Melissa. I
And
really
thank you
appreciate it.
so much.
Have
It's
a
just
wonderful
so,
day.
yeah, and well done for everything you're doing as well.
Thank you. We'll be in touch again soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Take
Bye.
care.
See you,
Bye bye.
Diana.